Yellow, yellow, good day. We are reading, we are filming. We've got Lexi Chong here today, and it is my utmost pleasure to interview you.
I'm honored. Thank you so much for asking me.
It's a distinct pleasure. And so I've got some questions here. Let's talk though first about, so how did you get into improv in high school? What was your improv journey?
My improv journey. Yeah, so I would say sometime just after college, I found out about a TV show called Comedy Bang Bang. I had heard just in general that it was really good, and I started watching it on Netflix, and it like unlocked something in me. It was like there was this itch that I didn't know I had. It was a kind of comedy that I didn't realize was my kind of comedy. And it's, kind of an improvised talk show. It's kind of a spoof kind of thing. And from there, went to the podcast, and this whole world of improv was kind of unlocked for me. And I thought, that looks really fun, but it seems too scary. I can't do that. But I had a very extroverted friend at my coding boot camp who had recently gone to an Engames grad show for one of her friends. And my friend said, hey, I would love to try this thing out. Would you want to take a class with me? And so, of course, I jumped at that chance because, introvert gloms onto the extrovert to get them out of their shell. So we took this class together. It was super fun. We thought we would sign up for, the full class together. And then my friend ended up moving to LA. So I was taking this class by myself, but then met two of my very best friends in my level 1 class, and we ended up taking all of our classes together. And it was great, yeah. This was all a year before the pandemic, thereabouts, and then took a little time off during the pandemic, took some classes online, and then got back in kind of feet first, about 2 years ago. So yeah, that's been the journey. It's certainly nothing I would have ever seen myself doing when I was younger, but all it takes is kind of just waiting in, and it was really fun. Yeah.
So Lexi performs on the 9 o'clock show piece Saturday night at Engames, and has been for
about just over a year and a half.
A year and a half. Stellar performer. I mean, really wonderful to watch you. Yeah,
so sweet.
You're so kind. You obviously glue, our glue force within the team,
so
and your subtle characters. I mean, it's really just your energy is just always such a boon to the
so
show.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for thanking.
I'm a people pleaser, so this is probably going to happen quite a bit.
Great. So my question is, how do you still consider yourself an introvert, or do you think that you have more extroverted characteristics, or how do you view yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I've always kind of been an extroverted introvert, so I know that's sort of a buzzword that a lot of people will say out there, but ultimately I like to recharge by myself, but I love people, I love being around people, and I love to laugh, so I feel like that motivates a lot of my actions. I think improv has definitely helped make me feel more at ease, I guess, just doing, not that being around people is tiring inherently for me, but it's helped me feel like I'm getting just as much energy from being around people as I am by myself. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's a little convoluted.
How did that happen? What do you think that how do you think that improv helped that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that because, one of the basic tenets of improv, and really one of the things that drew me to it, was this idea that, everyone's there to support you. It's probably one of the most supportive environments you could have, especially to be weird and explore that creative side of yourself. It's everyone's job, everyone else's job to make you look good, and it's your job to make everyone else look good. And I think in the same way, it's we are all making a collective effort to make
Did you learn this kind of on Comedy Bang Bang, or how did you?
I think it was just this freedom and creativity that I saw in, through the TV show and then listening to the podcast that made me think like, wow, that's so, there's just so much freedom to express yourself. And slight tangent, but when I was in high school, I tutored these elementary school students, and after we kind of finished the studying part, and like their homework, they would get to go out and play on the field. And I remember this thing they would do with like the after-school counselors, and they would like line up at the edge of the field, and they would run as far as they could while screaming, and then whenever they stopped screaming, they had to stop where they were. And I remember that just looking like so much fun, and also thinking if I was an adult just screaming on the field while running, everyone would look at me like I was crazy. And I feel like in a way improv is that same experience. If I did anything I do on stage out in public, I would probably look absurd. And yet on the stage and amongst improv friends, it's accepted and it's embraced and supported. So yeah, I think it was just kind of a side lesson that I learned while doing improv that just turned out to be such a lucky addition to my life. Yeah.
Excellent. Yes. Do you feel that like your like it's like some people. I mean, it's like the more comfortable you can be with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess my question is, do you feel like how do you think you stay so like it's like people all perform as voice and perform as like normal voice, it's like, but it's like I think you have like a really nice natural I don't know natural expression, and I feel like it's really cool to see, like to like be witness to that. I'm just wondering like how did that come by naturally, you think, or like you just started with improv with it and then you sustained it, or how did it grow?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think communication in general is something I've always been it's been like a fairly strong suit of mine. And I think, not to kind of be a broken record, but I think that the environment being as supportive as it is just has helped foster so much of that in me as well. I think it took me a long time to be comfortable on stage. Improv for me started out as a very almost selfish thing of like, I am here to make myself laugh and I'm here to make my friends laugh. And I kind of resisted performing or being on a stage for a long time because I don't really think I'm not someone who's necessarily motivated by having other, like entertaining an audience. It's more like I want this experience just for myself to be a thing that makes me happy. But I think just getting more experience being out on stage and trying to kind of narrow in on my scene partners and my team by not necessarily ignoring the audience, but not getting distracted by the audience. I think when I perform, I try to really focus on what's happening in that moment, making a lot of eye contact and trying to treat every situation as if it was me dealing with this in the real world, and registering if there's laughter or not so I know what to respond to, but not getting in my own head about it, like not making that the focus. how I perform, because ultimately, for me, it's still, I want to make my scene partners laugh. I want to make my friends laugh. So I think that's kind of what helped me feel more at ease, I guess, communicating naturally. Did that answer your question? I'm not exactly sure. Okay, cool.
How do you like engage with the supportive community? Like, how do you feel like you support your improv community?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would say, for me, I think the best improv is when it feels like we're all in on this big inside joke together that's being created on stage, or in a class, whatever environment you're in. And for me, it's very important that, obviously there's an inside joke between you and the other performers. You're forming this thing together, but it's really important that the audience is a part of that as well. Because especially in the show that I do, Your Effective Relationship, there's a lot of vulnerability both on stage as performers, but also oftentimes the audience members that we're interviewing are sharing very intimate details, very vulnerable details about their past or their experiences. And so I think it's valuable to kind of get everyone on the same page, make sure everyone feels taken care of. And part of that is like, the stories that are being shared with us, we want to treat those with respect. And maybe help reframe some experiences for them as well. Like if it's something that, was a negative experience, like, someone shares that their partner was, berated them at some restaurant or something. Ideally my goal is to help reframe that memory for them in their life so that if they go back to that restaurant, hopefully they don't think about that horrible partner that they had, but maybe instead they'll think about that funny improv scene where, someone was asking all of their friends to call them your highness. Like something silly. That's kind of my goal in improv, is to like make everyone feel kind of taken care of and included. Sorry, what was the question that you started with? I want to make sure I answered it. I feel like
I think it was how do you support?
Oh yes, how do I support my people? Yeah, so I think it's treating everyone with respect, listening to their ideas. I think really acknowledging what they're bringing to the table and making sure that you're not negating anything that they're saying, but always having this mindset of we're creating this thing together and we're on the same side, I think helps inform a lot of the decisions and support that that we have in our team. I would say as well, my team is really great about hanging out outside of just doing improv. We have a lot of social activities and we're genuinely friends outside of this show that we put on together, and knowing that you have each other's backs, both on stage and off stage, I think makes everyone feel a lot more included. So
yeah. I mean, it's certainly like you guys fly. You guys are so good. Like, I mean, just that. It just clicks. I feel like you can't have that without a nice supportive, true supportive, like. Where there's like, I feel like I've read this, when you're doing improv, like you should like accept other people's ideas with more gusto than your own, or even more the same, something like that. Like, and I feel like that, that practice like doesn't change you, like right, like I mean I feel like you can't really do that all night in a Shakespeare, like with your troupe, whatever, when you're in practice, and then go into the real world and kind of like forget that. I feel, would you say that the skills transfer or like the practice?
Yeah, I think so. It's, sorry, would you mind reframing that for me? Just one minute.
I mean, like, I guess the question is like kind of down to that question, kind of like about how does improv make you kinder? Like it's kind of like how can you like speak to that, like when you kind of adopt? 'Cause I feel like in your team, like watching you guys do your thing, it's like someone. There's no like negation, right? That would kill it. Number one, like I'm just making everyone uncomfortable, but does that sort of like fluidity with like accepting other people's ideas, like as if they were your own, like that kind of selflessness, if you will, like does that transfer to your life, or have you noticed like that?
Yes, I see what you're getting at now. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I tend to be a fairly conflict-free person in my life anyway, but, it certainly gives you a lot more confidence to realize that everyone has so much value that they bring to every interaction, and kind of taking the time to listen to and engage with that idea before just, defaulting to like, oh, my idea is best or whatever. Again, it's this whole, we're working towards things together, we're creating a shared thing, and I think that does make people nicer. I think improv really trained you to be more empathetic, and I think that having that kind of group mind is a great way to approach anything. That's great in work, it's great in play, it's great with your friends. Like, collaboration breeds way better ideas than anything you could think of on your own. And often is way more creative. People will throw curveballs in improv scenes, not to like derail you, but to give you more opportunity to create and expand your ideas. And certainly if I was doing an improv scene just with other me's, like we would never reach all of those other great ideas that everyone gets to throw in the mix. So yeah, I think it's a very it's a really good skill that's kind of trained through improv that ends up benefiting all the other areas of your life. So yeah.
Wow. Fantastic. I've had these questions that are on the tip of my tongue and I just forget them at the last moment.
That's okay.
But I guess that's kind of shitty listening, isn't it?
No, not at all.
Well, yeah, darn tootin'.
It's
Anyway,
okay.
let's return to the
take notes
text.
as you
Yeah,
go.
I'll
Yeah.
take notes. Yeah, good
Yeah.
idea. How do you stay present on stage and in life? And also, what is the value of that?
Ooh. So, I would say on stage, I guess in life, in all areas, I make a lot of eye contact with people. I think probably more eye contact than a lot of people would feel comfortable with. And for me, that really just helps me key into the situation, focus my attention on someone, and let everything that they're saying kind of fully absorb or really sink in for me, so that I can respond to kind of the last thing that they said, or kind of get the whole picture and respond to that. I remember taking an improv workshop at Camp Improv Utopia last year, and we did a lot of exercises around, only saying one line, like one sentence at a time in your line, so that you would interact more honestly, I guess, to like the last offer that was presented to you. If that makes sense. And I think that's just a really good practice in general, to kind of make sure you are fully invested in the conversation that's happening. And I'm trying to think of how I stay present in it. I think just I'm a genuinely curious person. It's a hard thing to say, like, oh, I do this because that makes me present. I think I am someone who is very curious. Every person has, in life has a lesson to teach, or they have some kind of interesting story. You just kind of have to find what it is that they're excited to talk about, or what their interesting viewpoint is. So I always am looking for that. And I think on stage it's the same thing. Somewhere in that initiation or in their contribution to the scene, that they're working on something else that's interesting, which, might not mean they're planning the whole scene ahead of you, but they have some idea that they are intentionally trying to work in, and trying to find that or unlock that together is an interesting enough goal for me that I stayed locked in, if that makes sense.
For sure. When you, I feel like there's an optimism, in improv, because it's what you're talking about, you're interested to see what happens, you're curious, that implies an optimism, right? That you'll find something, or is there a morbid, I don't know if you can be morbidly curious, perhaps, and then it's but yeah, just wanted to say that, do you feel I feel negativity just in general doesn't really work with improv.
Yeah, I think it just make improv not that fun, we've all seen, it's interesting that you say that, actually, because I think about so often in improv scenes, there's conflict, and I'm guilty of this too, I think going to a conflict in a scene in a way buys you more time in the scene, because it'll give you something to talk about if you have two opposing viewpoints. But improv, I think, or some of my favorite improv scenes are also the ones where you're peace in a pod, you have a shared idea together, and we've seen that those scenes work just as well. That's not to say that there can't be conflict in scenes, but having this, as you're saying, optimism, this kind of shared, at least, if the characters aren't positive, the improvisers being positive about forming this scene together, this shared, this vision, I think that just helps, I don't know, the energy feels better for everybody. Nobody wants to be in the audience watching two characters on stage argue for 5 to 10 minutes. It's not fun. People go to improv to get away from whatever other stresses they have in their life. So I think there is a lot of optimism in improv, and part of that is just fostered by the community of it being so supportive, I think it being a space where people want to make you look good. I don't know, that to me breeds a lot of optimism.
Pray tell, yeah, let's speak to confidence, shall we?
Sure.
What role do you think confidence plays in improv? Yeah, in improv. End of query.
I think improv has personally made me a lot more confident. I think that, as I was saying, everyone in life and on stage has some interesting story to tell. And it's just a matter of, making someone feel confident enough that they can share that with you or the audience, their teammates, whatever that environment is. So I think confidence is key to say that thing that's on your mind. A lot of times I think people will try to self-edit or self-filter, and I think that ends up being, you're probably glossing over a ton of great ideas because you're not going with that first thought that's in your mind. Obviously, barring whatever weird offensive things, like yeah, okay, filter those out. But like, if people are self-filtering because they're like, oh, it's not funny enough, like that's not. I'd say have the confidence, just go out and say that thing. But a lot of that confidence is built up by knowing that you are with people who are supporting you and people who will kind of endorse whatever idea you have and help build it. Because I also know there's nothing worse than like going out on stage and nobody is joining you for the idea that you have, and you're just kind of playing to this like very empty stage or very low energy environment. That's not fun either. So I think confidence it's people. It's hard to say because I don't want it to be like if you don't have confidence, it's not the right experience. That's not what I mean. I think it's more that people should have more confidence in their ideas because 99% of the time they're going to be great ideas. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Okay, cool.
Yeah. How do you? So I guess I wanted to talk about breath a little bit.
Okay.
What do you think about breath? Like breathing fully, or breathing like to satisfaction. Do you think about that?
A little, but tell me more.
Well, I wonder if like it's like a subconscious and unconscious like process in the large way. So I feel like to some degree, like if you're chosen by your team, I would imagine like your breath is like it feels like it's like in a good place. But I'm just trying to think about like I made up a note recently to like breathe before I take a line, before I say a line.
Okay.
Just slow it down. And I think for me, I don't know. I'm just coming to grips on that. I'm thinking like, oh, maybe I should. Do you have any like a breath practice?
Thoughts on that? I remember in the first 501 class I took with Craig Gaspian, we did an exercise where before you say your line, you say that entire line in your head before you do it. And obviously you can't do that on stage, but it was, I think the idea behind it was just to like be comfortable taking some space before you kind of dive into what you're going to say. That's not meant to contradict what I just said about like self-filtering. Like, there shouldn't be like a self-filtering, but I think people can sometimes talk just because they feel like they need to fill the space. But taking those pauses, taking those breaths can also just be really good to have the energy feel more balanced, I guess. I don't think I actively think about my breathing on stage, but I do think there's value in doing so, so that you can kind of center yourself and not feel like you're, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you're not really kind of out on a limb, like you can take that space and it's fine to take. Yeah, I'm trying to think through that a little more. Yeah, I mean, in general, I think it's a good practice to have. Is take a little time, think through what you want to say, and then say it, and then it'll people won't notice that there is, unless you're taking like an absurdly long break. I think most people won't think that seems unreasonable. Yeah, I don't know. What was the note that it was like, or what was it meant to address? I guess the note that you got.
My first thought is like speaking too fast, but then it's probably like, I think we're working on honing like details, like focusing on the details we have, not necessarily introducing heck and new ones. And I think that my breath was like kind of spinning, like just kind of ungrounded, whatever, untethered, like kind of like just going for things, saying things. And it's just like, come on, just breathe, you know, and just. But I wonder, how do you like stay kind to yourself? Like, I feel like that's a necessary part of it, right? Like, because like, how can you be kind and like respect? Like your point about self-confidence in other people, like everyone has a value, so that kind of helps you have confidence because you. Right, because you're like, if they have value, then I have value. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I guess my question was, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. But yeah, it was. So look, how do you keep kind, keep a kind self-voice?
Gosh, it's tough because I think a lot of people will, and myself included. Have a bad show or something happens or something didn't go the way that you planned. You thought you initiated with something you thought was going to be great and then no laughter or something. We all have those moments. And I think it's really easy to dwell on those or to think about I could have made this move. But at the end of the day, you got to cut yourself some slack because improv is entirely unpredictable. It's we are living so in the moment in improv that I think it's something that just comes with the territory. If you did it right every single time, then that's just not a thing that exists. It's probably a scripted thing at that point. So I think it's just a matter of cutting yourself some slack, realizing that today wasn't my best, but last week the show was great, or the specific moments I liked in the show were this, and this is what I can learn from the moments that didn't go so well. I think, I think taking the moments you would otherwise see as negative and turning them into learning opportunities, or also just realizing that, it's impossible to make 100% of the shots, and find the things that did bring you joy and appreciate the time that you got to spend with your friends. For me, those are the things that kind of help me stay out of my head in that way, it's such a cool experience. It's such a cool thing we get to do, just making things up on the spot and being silly and weird, that even if it's not a huge laugh point, or even if you didn't say the exact right thing that you thought you should have said, what a cool thing we get to be a part of in general. That why sweat it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Raquel, what value do you think improv has for an audience? For someone who's coming to improv show, what do you think that it does for them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For me as an audience member, I've always been a big fan of live theater. I love musicals and plays, and there's a lot of stage magic that happens there. But what is appealing to me about improv is just, this is something that has never existed before. It's never going to exist again. And the only people who will really know what this was, are in this room at this very moment. And that's a very kind of unifying experience to me. You feel like you're very much in community with the people around you. And what I was saying earlier about sharing, creating and sharing this inside joke with the people on stage and in the audience, to me that's what that is. If you're in that audience, that thing that happened, is so funny, and it's a thing that I would only have been a part of by being here in this moment. And to me that's a very cool and special feeling. I also think, there's a lot of, you can have a very personalized experience, which is cool. Like any other live show you see, they've they've scripted it, or they've written it out, or they've performed it before. And here, the improvisers on stage are calling back things that have happened with you here. It might even be your story that they're improvising based off of, or your word that you supply. And this is like a bespoke performance in a way. Like it's tuned to just you, which is pretty cool. And there's something great about seeing people be vulnerable and silly with each other. And I think just being part of that experience, even if it's mostly directed to the other people on stage and not you as an audience member, but just seeing that, it's fun. Like, people like being around fun. And there's something very freeing about that. Yeah, I don't know. That's always what I value as a
nice
member. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, it's a fast answer. I love that. Yeah. What do you think about inside jokes? Like, do you feel like you're like you goof with your friends differently now?
Yeah, it's funny because I think, I have a friend who's not an improviser, but, has been a big supporter of my improv career, and she's always telling me, like, oh, I love that, we can just do bits with each other and just riff with each other. And I'm like, if you just do improv, that's everybody. Everybody you meet. But thank you for thinking it's unique to me. And
do bits.
Yeah. Like, nobody's going to be more supportive of the dumb joke that you have, besides your other improv friends. So sorry, what was your question again?
I just feel like I was just talking.
Inside jokes.
Yeah, the inside jokes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a fun thing that makes people feel closer together, is having this thing that's funny to just us. It's the kind of thing where you and your best friend will like go out to lunch, and then something will happen that reminds you of a thing you've shared together, and you'll just make eye contact and start laughing without saying a word, because you both are thinking the exact same thing. And I think that's what's so cool about improv as well, is we're creating so many of these experiences on the spot for people, because each scene is different. Each scene has its own game, or each scene has its own silly thing, or in shows with an interview portion, has a callback to something funny in that story. And I think those are such like magical moments for everyone in that room, to be like, oh, this is like the thing that unites us all together. We all know about this thing. So yeah, I mean, for me, improv and like inside jokes, it's all about that community of like, we all know this thing that is now a shared experience for us, even if we come from like totally different backgrounds or different lives outside of this specific moment.
I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah, the value of an inside joke, I love that. Yeah, that's cool. I've never really had someone expand on that.
Oh,
so thank you. Yeah. When you think about like inside jokes, right? You're cracking up. I'm wondering, how do you think that reads to an audience? Like, in terms of, I don't see you guys don't crack up. What I've seen, players crack up. But sometimes I feel like once I like it, as an audience member, like to see performers who crack up within themselves. I know that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about inside jokes, like maybe the laughter, right, it comes from the audience, whatever the case. But yeah, what do you think about that? Like when you see performers crack up?
Yeah, so I will say, like, occasionally in our team we'll throw in little references just for each other that are really fun, that might not read as well to the audience, but we know that it's a thing that happened in our practice this week or something. We're calling it back just for us. But in general, I try to steer clear of things that would be too outside the realm. I think if someone goes with way too niche information about something that is just going to alienate the audience, I don't know, that they might not feel included at that point. So I want to kind of keep things at a level where people can relate. But in general, I think it's really fun to see people having fun on stage. So I enjoy it when I see people laughing, because it's hey, you're having a great time, which is ultimately what I'm here to see, is people experiencing joy. I think the only times it can be a little distracting is if it's supposed to be a very dramatic moment and someone's being ironic about it, ironically detached, or hamming it up in a certain way. But in general, it's yeah, if something made you laugh, then laugh. I don't think there should be such a strict choice to not laugh, because hey, we're all supposed to be having fun, and that's performers and audience alike. So yeah, I have a lot of fun watching it.
Do you feel like sometimes when I'm cracking up a lot, I think it's because I'm kind of loosely attached to the scene, so I'm just kind of on this outside looking at it, and from that voyeur kind of perspective.
Yeah.
And it feels good to. Sometimes it just feels a little masturbatorial, to be honest, because it's no one else is laughing, but I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Often I find when performers start to crack up, they're starting to say a line and they start to crack up. Yeah. And I'm expecting that line to be hella funny. I've learned how to not, because it's not going to be as good of a laugh. If they're chortling.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know if that's or if it's just in their head, or what it is. It's a vulnerable moment, and so I appreciate that on the level of of a performance value. I think that's kind of cool to see. But yeah, it's a little bit.
Yeah, I think that is a good distinction that you're making, because laughing at something your scene partner said because it was so funny that you couldn't contain it. And it was funny. You should appreciate that. But yeah, I think laughing at your own joke before you said it, that's give the audience the opportunity to laugh. Get the line out before you crack up at your own thing, because
your own thing.
Yeah.
That's classic.
Yeah, I think that can definitely take you out of it. And like you said, that kind of ironic detachment. I think one of my coaches calls this improv phase, where you're not really emotionally engaged in the scene, but you're sort of making a winking face almost to the audience about it. I've definitely noticed that a lot more now that he's called it that. And I see what you're saying. Have fun, but also stay engaged in the moment, in the scene, and your scene partners. And if you're on the sidelines, laugh, but don't take the attention away. And I can be guilty of this too, because I can have a very big laugh, but try to keep the attention on the performers and not distract because you're laughing away on the sidelines. Is generally how I try to how I try to be as a teammate and performer.
What do you think about? I think we're.
You're good.
I think we're in a good place. I mean, is there anything you would care to share?
I don't know. Is there anything else you're curious about?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are. I think you're going to interview, right?
Yeah.
What is it? Just present listening or an active listening that helped you, or is there a way you remember certain things? And you were just so swift, picking up from a store, from an interview share, be you'll it seems like you guys will know more or less at the same time. Maybe someone introduces it, But you guys have gotten so good at like, or I mean, not that I've seen you guys not be good at it. It's like you always are that way. But it's like in terms of like setting up the joke with that what you saw, and then like communicating that to the other person. But like, and then but your point about like how you when you want to refrain, you want to help that person refrain is positive. Is that one of the tools you use? Like to like, because you don't like pull from a story and like you share from it like on the nose exactly what happened, because that'd be like redundant. You know, we've already seen that or we've heard about it, but like to twist it, or like kind of riff off of it. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think some okay. So for the first part, you're saying about we kind of know what detail they're pulling from. Certainly when we're listening to an interview, we are trying to listen out for when, details that make the audience laugh. So hopefully those will be the things that stick in their mind as well when we call it back later. That there'll be some like odd way that someone, that the interviewee like named something. And then we can call that back later. I think my personal goal in it is, like you said, trying to map it onto something that would be, a good reframing for them, especially some of the like more sensitive topics we kind of cover. We don't want to like venture into any depressing territory. So trying to, in my head, I'm always trying to map that onto like the silliest, like analogous situation. Oftentimes I'm looking at like, where else might we see this kind of behavior, in a totally absurd scenario, or where would we see, like, where else would someone say this kind of thing? Where else would someone have this particular weird mindset? And just try to put that onto something else that's unexpected and fun. So hopefully it's enough that the audience will realize what we're referencing, but also, I don't know, it's just something new for us all to experience together and, kind of have a fun, unique spin on things. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Was there a period in your improv journey so far where you've like gotten, like maybe it's like after you graduated classes, where you're feeling like you just kind of get a self-conscious and bit of a plateau. You've had plateaus in your
definitely.
Yeah. What do you do about that? Like, how do you muscle through it?
Yeah, I definitely, in all areas of my life, have had a lot of imposter syndrome about a lot of things, especially when I got onto this, Saturday Effective Relationship team. I felt a little out of my element at first, and I remember a few months going by where I was just like, I feel like I'm, stagnant. I'm not like performing in the way I would want to perform, and it's rough, But I think, knowing that you're with people who are there to support you, and as we were saying, like, their job is to make you look good, your job is to make them look good. I tried to take it as like, I'm just going to work really hard at trying to make other people look good. So even if I feel like I'm not bringing my strongest self, I can be a really supportive scene partner for them. And then, it's painful, but watching back your shows it's tough. It's tough watching yourself do anything. But it can be a really helpful way, at least I found, to kind of see what decisions I made and, think through, like, what decisions would I make next time without, like, kind of beating myself up about it, but just, like, thinking through, like, okay, if I face a similar sort of situation again, how could I feel more prepared for it the next time? So, yeah, I think, trying to stay positive about it, trying to give yourself grace that, every performer has gone through this, and even the very, very best performers that have been improvising for decades we'll still have, jokes fall flat or scenes, kind of turn out to be duds sometimes, and that's just a part of the art and part of the experience, a part of life, really. No one succeeds at like everything all the time. Using those as kind of the things to say like, well, the next show I do, I'll do better, or it'll be a new opportunity, a new experience. Trying to frame things that way, I think, has helped me kind of get past those the ruts when I felt like I've been in a rut.
Cool, excellent. Now, when you say make people look good, what do you mean?
Yeah. I think listening really hard to make sure that I don't negate any of whatever idea they came out with. Trying to find good and creative ways to support them, especially if they're the weirdo and you're like the straighto in the scene, like trying to find ways to tee them up, and endowing them with a lot of gifts to kind of help them think through their character more, or if they haven't necessarily established their character's wants, prompting them to do that, gifting that to them, or helping them define their game, or just even being someone really good at tag runs or walk-on, something, whatever you can do to help the scene. Those have kind of been my go-tos when I felt like, oh, the stuff that I'm maybe starting with has, when I haven't felt as confident in that realm.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lexi. Well, I think we conclude here
Yeah.
nicely. Thank you, Lexi. Thank you for watching this.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Good day. Top of day. Okay.